about the Bob Denver rating system?
Evil, deformed, adorable? How do these three adjectives describe one thing? No, I'm not talking about politicians. For centuries, mankind has created stories to frighten and to soothe, and somewhere along the way, we use things that frighten us to soothe us. Tonight, the panel will ponder all these things, plus how aberrations have become inspirations for adorations, as we discuss monsters right now on Dispatches from Outside the Box.
In the spaces, things exist. In the lines that form the network of your mind. Behind the retinas of imagination are the particles and peripherals that made you who you are. Turn off, shut your eyes, and listen to Dispatches from Outside the Box.
Man, you know what always gets me is you see him fall from off the Empire State Building, and they don't give the poor monkey a nice clear fall. No, he's got to hit things on the way down. Yeah, insult to that poor. Anyway, welcome to the show that scours the corners of geekdom to help inspire you to create outside the box. I'm C Michael Lanning, inviting you to like, subscribe, describe, any kind of scribe, hit the bell icon for future shows. And of course, comment, because we always love to hear what you have to say. Let's go ahead and meet our panel right now. If nobody had anything to say about the monkey comment, so
it was an ape.
It was whatever. Oh, that's right. It doesn't have a tail. It's not a monkey. It's an ape.
Yeah, they had to have him bounce off the building in order to make it realistic.
That's right. There you go. Because what was it? An 80-foot ape is very realistic.
And suddenly the long distance shot, he becomes a lot smaller.
Randy, go ahead and introduce yourself.
He changes size all through the movie if you watch it. And you're not supposed to think about things like that.
Well, he's kind of like the Hulk, right? Remember how the Hulk used to get bigger?
That's part of the fun and charm of the movie. Hey, everybody, I'm Randy Zimmerman. I'm a longtime alternative and independent comics publisher, producer, I don't know, talk about a historian, you might say, whatever. I've been doing this a long time, done just about everything in this business that you can imagine. And now I'm podcasting on the Ragin 2 network twice a week whenever I'm not here. I'm on Wednesday nights now at 8 p.m. for the Zimcast, where we talk about comic news and opinions, and then Sunday mornings where we talk about comics in this industry from a more lighthearted, hopefully more lighthearted and more fun point of view on the Sunday Funnies. It's 9 a.m. here on the Ragin 2 network. Other than that, I'm drawing stuff. So
all right. You don't want to move that one. See, we're coming at you earlier tonight. You don't want to move Sunday Funnies up earlier, though.
No, I might. I'm not sure about this week, though. I might not be able to make it because the person I thought was going to watch my table at the show that I'm at this weekend isn't going to make it. So
Oh,
Oh,
I'm
sounds
like,
we'll figure something out after.
yeah,
You can live cast from the show.
yeah, that'll be great from my phone. Real professional.
we have some that do that.
Yeah.
If anyone
don't know
can
how
do
the
it,
signal
Randy,
would work.
it's you.
It's going to be you. Yeah, right?
Probably. Yeah. I did. Well, yeah, maybe. I did do a podcast when I was laying in the hospital bed, barely able to raise my hand up above my head, but that's a whole other story.
Nita, go ahead and introduce yourself with your zebra patterns.
My name is Nita Lanning. I am a writer, vlogger, blogger from Southeast Louisiana. I am co-host on Mondays and Fridays with the beautiful and talented Daphne Lage for the Ragin 2, the vlogs at 11 a.m. I am also the executive producer of the Ragin 2 broadcast network.
And she's not saying that because Daphne's watching. Mitch, go ahead and introduce yourself, sir.
I am Mitch Rogers. I am a 14-year veteran of the self-published comic books world, writer and artist and self-publisher. If you like monsters, pick up any of my Boger comics. You can find them for sale at my website, CelticCrossComics.com.
Awesome. All right. And bringing Moxie back, Mr. Brian K. Morris, please introduce yourself, sir.
I'm Brian K. Morris, independent publisher, freelance writer, editor, award-winning short story writer, Facebook famous YouTuber, and former mortician's assistant. And I do all kinds of writing. I do all kinds of editing. And and I know a little something about monsters, too. But anyway,
there you go.
Also former comics retailer, comics scripter, chief cook and bottle washer, chief set of hands at Rising Tide Publications. And thank you for having me.
No, it's great to have you. You're gonna have to. What is Santa Stein about?
Well, as my pitch goes, Dr. Frankenstein has a cure for his fiance's holiday blues. What could go wrong? I spent 180 pages telling you. Anyway, this is available on Amazon. I have sold copies of this in 8 different countries, most of which are still speaking to us. And also, it's available on Amazon.com and Smashwords. So
That's always good to know. That's always good when you send a book over there and they haven't started World War III.
so far, so good. We can only hope. So
Lithuania hasn't decided to bomb us yet or anything.
yeah,
Yet.
darn Brian.
And of course we're coming at you at an earlier time. Looks like we've got some people in the chat. So that's Carl's Wisman. Okay, so I got reeled in by 2 shows so far. Let's hope you stick with this one though, the better show. Whatever the other one is, it's the better show.
It was the cryptids show, dummy.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Oh, there is also one for HowlCon going on tonight. They asked if I could be on there, but I said no.
Look at see.
I was already committed to another show.
It's a
Aw.
wow.
I'm gonna go pop in over there. I feel bad for the boys now.
Oh my gosh.
Bye.
Yeah, you would, wouldn't you? Hey, Pops, what's going on? And of course, hello, Donna. And Carl says, neat fade effect into the background. That's just my normal voice.
He was probably talking visually because you backed up out of the
into
out
the
of the
shadow.
light.
Oh, is that what? Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not here to help rank monsters in order of hotness. But that's what I was thinking. Now, Randy, if you decide to talk about like the monsters of the comic industry tomorrow night and maybe monsters in comics on Sunday, we kind of have a monster theme happening since they had the effable monsters on House of Bob earlier, like Saturday.
Oh, really? You want to keep to a monster theme? I can do
It
that.
was monster boyfriends and other fuckable creatures.
Oh, there you go.
There's a few people out there that consider me to be a monster, so it's all
We're-
good.
We're all about wholesomeness here on Radio.
I was going to talk about Rob Liefeld and the new kids coming up in the industry. So
Oh yeah, this
apparently they're like little monsters also. So who knows?
let's see.
We'll keep that theme going.
Chippy made it through the redo. Hi everyone. I assume she's talking about King Kong.
Chippy.
Right?
No, she's talking about Chippy.
Oh,
Chippy.
right, Chippy. Okay.
He's the HR department.
Jeez. No, Randy, the dead squirrel in the road.
Dead Chippy was a dead squirrel. I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about your.
No. That's Umbra.
Hey, so what's up, Roy?
It'd still
How
be
are you?
the HR department. Let me cast a few spells.
Yeah, that's about how much our HR department cares.
All right, and now since I didn't know who Chippy was, I feel like a monster. Let's
Yeah.
let's talk about this. So, monsters. Let me see if I can pull this up real quick. I was looking at the etymology of a monster, but we're not going to get into all that. It's a malformed animal or human creature afflicted with birth defect. that could mean a lot of things. Let's see. What was I going to say? But one thing about it, monsters used to be seen as divine omens, portent, sign, abnormal shape, repulsive character. But we don't really stick to that nowadays, right? I mean, we kind of see all sorts of different monsters. But the ones that come to mind first off is kind of the universal monster.
Absolutely.
The Dracula, the Bela Lugosi Dracula, the Boris Karloff Frankenstein, and the Lon Chaney
Wolfman.
Wolfman, right?
Man.
Yep.
What do you think
And
it
the
is
Boris
about those?
Karloff mummy.
Well, there you go.
That's true.
So what is it about those that kind of stick with people even to today? That's what we go back to.
They were kind of the first.
Pretty much.
Well, they weren't like the first, but they were the first like culturally significant monsters on film.
Right.
You know, all the quote unquote rules of the monster movie all basically started with them.
Yeah, but they came off of the novels, Mary Shelley and Bram Stoker.
Bram Stoker.
But even with that, though, there's still something you could say. You see, we've had different iterations of Dracula. We've had different iterations of Frankenstein, but these are the ones that kind of stick with us. Now, maybe the werewolf kind of has different views, but we always seem to kind of come back to the Lon Chaney look. I mean, look at Michael J. Fox in Teen Wolf. That had a very well. I guess maybe that wasn't really Lon Chaney as much as Michael Landon, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I was a teenage werewolf. Yeah.
Teenager werewolf.
Yeah.
But Landon's was a takeoff of Chaney's. Anyway.
Oh, yeah.
So
Well,
I don't think the werewolf really started shifting until like the 80s with John Landis and The Howling, American Werewolf in London. Then they became more wolf-like because they could.
Right.
So
yeah.
as opposed to just pasting a bunch of hair on on a face and making them growl at the camera.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So basically, you just kind of grew with the facts. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Brian.
Well, I was going to say, you asked earlier, see, about, like what made these OGs so iconic. My theory is there had been Frankenstein films before, and there had been Dracula films like Nosferatu. This was the first time we could hear them, though. Now we have sound.
True,
And, that's why you had, like, it's not only just the visual of Bela Lugosi as Dracula and those, haunting eyes, but also that Hungarian accent.
Right, yeah.
And you could hear the growl of Frankenstein and the howls of the Wolfman or the grunts of the Mummy, whatever. This is the first time you could, you could tie in, like, sounds and, and visuals. Plus, the looks of them were so darned unique. In fact, a number of them, like especially like Frankenstein, are still trademarked.
Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So,
And not only that, and not only the fact that you could hear them, but they were also the first real set of monsters because they were sound movies that came into your home.
Right.
Many a Saturday afternoon was spent, or late night Saturday night, watching these classic films and just embedding those icons into our subconscious.
Well, when did the magazines start coming out? Like the Filmgoria and is it not Filmgoria? Fangoria.
Fangoria.
And those.
Fangoria was
Well,
the
Fangoria
80s.
was the 80s, but the Famous
Okay.
Monsters
Famous
was what,
Monsters.
late 60s, middle 70s?
Yeah.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah,
Warren.
George J.
60s,
Ackerman.
yeah. And there were
But
some
again,
like,
that's-
cheap knockoffs, but
Yeah, the real cheap black and white, printed on newsprint, fuzzy photographs, whatever that they could get or find. But that really, those came out of these characters and these movies becoming icons by coming into the home through television and popping into the movies. So your Hammer films were raging really hard
Oh,
back
love
in,
those.
during that period.
love the Hammers.
Just a great set of horror to talk about. And fandom was also gaining a lot of ground and organizing at that period. And Famous Monsters is a big part of that.
So would Famous Monsters be kind of like the first big fandom?
No, but I would say they were the first big fan horror magazine.
Well, no, I mean, I'm talking about as far as like a fandom or a fan following or a cult following.
Oh no, well,
You
you'd
know.
have to go back to the pulp magazines for that. They started building a mass following at that point when people started sending in letters, and then they started printing their letters, and then people just like just like Twitter today, you had people responding back and forth. Oh, you're crazy. This isn't like this. This is like this. Only it was it was a lot more civilized discussion.
Yeah.
She had more time to think about what you were going to say.
Yeah, it was a lot more articulate. And people started, well, back then, unless you picked up the telephone and you were lucky enough to know somebody's number, you wrote people letters back and forth. And that's what these magazines did. Fanzines sprung up about the same time, talking about the stuff that they love. And, there's all sorts of different fanzines for all sorts of different genres.
And just like you said, the special effects, it kind of added that certain appeal to people started to kind of get into those practical effects and start making things. So, making a person look beautiful is whatever, but you can make them look gory. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Even that goes back to the
realistically.
silent movies. Like Nosferatu is a very disturbing film.
Yeah.
When you sit and watch it, but you have to sit and watch it.
You have to sit and watch it,
Yeah.
and it is not a short movie. It's about an hour and a half, I think.
No.
Maybe longer.
Yeah.
Now, a really good creepy movie is Thomas Edison's version of Frankenstein
Yes.
from 1905. It's only like 10 minutes long, so you're not sitting there as long as a full-on movie. And the monster in that looks really creepy.
Really, I did not know Thomas Edison did
Oh yeah.
did movies, much less the Frankenstein.
Edison was out to make money any way that he could, and one of the quick
And
ways.
rip off anyone he could.
Exactly.
And at that point, doing porn would have really destroyed his reputation. So he did horror instead.
Oh, wait, okay. I think I've
Tesla's
seen
movie
this.
would have been a lot better. I'm sure.
Yeah, Tesla's movie would have been much better because people would have floated in that film.
Exactly.
Yes.
He would have animated a corpse.
Could
by
you
now.
think we
Ironic-
might have actually be
sad
having
to say, he probably
Frankenstein
coulda.
to this day?
Yeah.
And the ironic thing about Edison's Frankenstein is Edison and Tesla were both known for electricity or anything with electricity. In that film, he actually grew out of a cauldron.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty
That's
impressive
funny.
actually because they made a cardboard cutout of Charles Ogle, the actor there, and then filmed it and then reran it in reverse, so it looks like these flames are creating him.
Yeah.
It's still pretty impressive, even after over 100 years.
A lot of those old silent movies, it's had some incredible special
See,
effects.
Yeah, and now he's going
rock
to an
and roll.
Ozzy Osbourne concert.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah,
he's
there
ahead
you
of his
go.
time, I'm telling you.
Back then, that was
Time
the
to
sign
kick
of
back
the
and
devil.
relax.
Yeah.
Well, it's
see-
funny that he's coming out of a cauldron, considering Edison.
And it's 1910 too, so anything that they saw on the screen, people believed.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Well, at the time they were doing, both at the time and going back to when the book was written, they were doing play versions of it, and very few of them had electricity as what created the monster. Even the novel doesn't go into actual detail as far as how the monster was created outside of
Stitching the body
Frankenstein.
together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
If Frankenstein going to slaughterhouses and in paupers fields and stuff. The electricity part's actually fairly new.
I read that, and it's been so many. I've been through so many Frankenstein
Yeah,
iterations.
Mhm.
I've been through so many Frankenstein iterations. I can't remember much about the book, or I get it confused with what I've seen. I remember the Robert De Niro one was pretty close, if I'm not
Pretty close.
mistaken.
Yeah.
Of course, it was Robert De Niro, but Kenneth Branagh, man. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Did a fantastic
And
job.
again, one of the things that really makes that classic, that really makes Frankenstein and Dracula classic, is that those books still hold up today. They're still creepy now.
Yeah, Dracula
and they're-
outsold the Bible 1 year.
Yeah, they're
So
phenomenal
that's to tell you
pieces of
something.
literature. Yeah. And a lot deeper than a lot of people imagine because everything gets trimmed down for those movies.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing that I've always thought was missing from every Frankenstein adaptation is in the book, the monster is very intelligent. He's constantly
yeah.
quoting Milton and Marlowe and all these
Yeah,
other
he was a
stuff.
man.
Yeah.
Like he was, a very, malformed, large yellow man, but, he was, in my opinion, a lot deeper than the other characters. I don't know if it's because Shelley focused on him so much, but he seemed, in my opinion, I guess, from my perspective reading it, more rounded than every other character, because all the other characters were, Frankenstein's best friend. That was his only role, or his only part in the book. And Frankenstein's fiance. The monster was the only one that really had like more than one. Was important to the book more than just one way. He was more of a driving force than anything else.
Not just
Right.
that, but he became very sympathetic.
Yeah,
I mean, at the end, you were rooting more for the monster than what you were Frankenstein.
Well, I mean,
You know.
that he was also still
In the
alive.
book. In the book,
Yeah.
because like Mitch said, he was intelligent, he was thinking, he was feeling.
Yeah,
You know.
and it's a very character-driven book too,
It
because
is.
all of the events really stem from people's, like in the first part, I think is Victor Frankenstein's, due to his madness. But then when he starts coming around, he's pushed the creature, as it is frequently called in the original book, to the breaking point where
Yeah.
the creature is basically reacting to a lot of the cruelties that are done to him. I think it's one of the great early books of alienation to me.
Yeah. Yep.
It's you're reading it in high school, and here's this 8 foot tall yellow guy with one arm longer than the other, and doesn't fit in with anybody, and you're like, yeah, I feel you, brother, I feel you.
So what do you think? Okay, so was it man should not pretend to be God? Was that the theme of the book? Was the theme of the book alienation, or was it
all of the above.
all
I'd
the
say.
above.
it
Yes,
doesn't really have
exactly.
one, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and there was a strong feeling of anti-science at the time too when Shelley first wrote the book. In fact, some universities in Europe were actually teaching alchemy
Yeah.
Oh,
as a
really?
major. Yeah, and even this anti-science thing extends up even into the 1930s. If you ever get a chance to read Philip Wiley's Gladiator, which is one of the influences for Superman.
Yeah.
If the whole ending, it's got a really terrible ending, I think, because it's basically here's what science has done to poor Hugo Danner, and he can't get by anywhere. So he's like, well, okay, God, what you gonna do with me? Bam! Hits him with lightning. Oh, sorry, spoilers.
Let's talk about Deus Ex Machina, huh?
Yeah, really, yeah.
it's just gotta come out.
The goal is don't leave any options for God, I guess, too. He's you better be in a good sense of humor that day.
But the Frankenstein that we're used to seeing, though, really doesn't stem from. I mean, it was loosely based on it, but it wasn't really. Yeah, he was a misunderstood monster. He threw pretty things in the water, but if I'm honest, he was burned at the end, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was in that windmill.
The
or
windmill.
whatever.
Windmill,
Yeah.
yeah.
In the movie. Yeah.
In the movie,
Yeah.
In the main movie, should say, in the Karloff movie.
But that's what sticks with us. It's not even the theme. It's just kind of the idea, the look, the fear of him. So you could even say initially, when you think Frankenstein, Mary Shelley considered it maybe a monster, really, or just an aberration of science. I know that sounds it sounds like the same thing, maybe, but
Really, if you stick to the definition of monster in the book, I think Frankenstein himself comes off as much more of a monster than the creature that he created.
He does.
He's a creature
Much so. Very much
that,
so.
said, is thinking and feeling and reacting.
right.
Well, plus in the movie, in the original 1931 or 1930 movie with Boris Karloff, Karloff was just such an incredible actor that he could do so much with so little, and no dialogue in the first movie, but all through his eyes and his hands and his body language, and after about 15 minutes of Karloff on the screen, you know who you're rooting for. You're pulling for the creature, not the guy that created him. So, and it's
Right.
I think it's a credit to Karloff's incredible acting.
And definitely not Igor. We're not rooting for Igor at all.
Well, he
Oh,
wasn't even in
no.
the first movie.
He wasn't in the first movie? He was in
No, it was Fritz was the hunchback in the first
Fritz.
movie.
Fritz. I think I do remember that. Yeah.
Played by Dwight Fry, who played Renfield in the earlier Dracula films.
There you go.
So was it Frankenstein that Bela Lugosi was offered and turned down?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah, because he'd have to wear makeup and prosthetics, and he didn't want to. Ironically, in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, he ends up playing the
Wolfman.
monster.
Oh, Frankenstein? Yeah.
Yeah.
He does.
Oh, really?
But that was after Frankenstein became a big thing.
Yeah,
So Yeah, I can put up with. Plus, at that point, he was probably desperate for work too. So
Yeah.
Oh yeah, right. Well, so I guess we could kind of blame Boris Karloff for that suave, not Boris Karloff, sorry, Bela Lugosi for that suave vampire
Dracula.
that we have now. Yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And the book was the movie was fairly close to the book, fairly close. There were a few differences, but it's mostly Lugosi's performance that pulls that movie off. But if you want to see a better one, at the same time they were filming, somebody else was doing a Spanish language version. And so when the Lugosi crew would clear out at night, the Spanish speaking people would come in and they used basically the same script except it was in Spanish. And they would use the same sets and everything. And in a lot of ways, I like the Spanish version a lot better.
It is really good.
The guy playing Dracula was fantastic.
Yeah.
Lugosi was great, no doubt about it. He was fantastic. He was iconic in the role, but there was just something that I think the Spanish actor was a little bit more well rounded, and I think he could pass as somebody who's like, I want to bring my 3 girlfriends and some dirt from the native land and a whole bunch of caskets over and set up roots here in England, that sort of thing. He might be able to charm his way over there and not make the neighbors too unhappy, as opposed to Lugosi, who's a little bit creepy all the way through the film, but he does it wonderfully. So
let's see if let me see if this is the guy, because
there was a release probably 10, 15 years ago, back when CDs, DVDs were raging, that Universal kicked out sets specific to each monster. And each set has like 5 or 6 movies in it, and the Dracula set has all of the Lugosi Draculas, and that Spanish version in there. They're just phenomenal sets. You can spend an entire afternoon with each one, going over all of the different iterations of the character that Universal did back in the 30s and 40s.
right.
yeah,
Really sweet, all the way up to, I think 1 or 2 of them have the Abbott and Costello meets movies in it, meets the Mummy, meets Frankenstein. Yeah, but they're all great.
they really are. Yeah, I think the Abbott and Costello movies get a lot of bad press from so-called connoisseurs. But when I was a kid, I felt the same way. I liked Abbott and Costello. I liked the Universal monsters, but having them together was just too jarring for me as a young kid. But I went back about 10 years ago and rewatched the Frankenstein film. It's actually fantastic. Because there is a serious plot there. There's serious stakes going on, but there's jokes that work into it, and it was because Abbott and Costello brought in their staff writers to redo the script. And when you go through, none of the monsters are held up for ridicule. They are treated seriously and as genuine menaces, which makes that movie just work on a whole different level.
So you didn't make them look stupid as opposed to yeah.
They weren't the ones that were there for humor relief.
Yeah,
right.
Abbott and Costello.
That was Costello,
Yeah.
and it bouncing off of Abbott. Yeah,
That was genius.
well, all of the old Abbott and Costello stuff, even their TV show is incredible to watch.
Oh my God, yes. And they've never done a 2-man comedy routine any better than Who's on First. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
That is the best.
No.
But as we go along in history, these things start taking a different shape. I remember if you read Stephen King's It, when the kids are being haunted, they're being haunted by the Frankenstein, they're being haunted by the Dracula. But in the 2 movies that came out with that, they really didn't use that Frankenstein. They did. I don't remember if it was Dracula, but I remember mostly the Frankenstein.
Rights issues probably.
Why take the chance? Yeah.
Well, I mean, but
or spend the money on the license. Yeah.
But at that point in time, would it translate well? You got to think. Now you're looking at, I think it came out in 1982 or something like that. I don't think
It was a little bit later. It was maybe 89.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
88.
was late,
Maybe
later
88.
part of the 80s, yeah. But it had
So
Tim
you-
Curry. You didn't need anything else.
That's
Well, no,
true,
I'm
too.
not talking about the movie now. I'm talking about the book.
Okay. The book.
Oh,
okay, yeah.
yeah. The book was around
Yeah.
80 something. Yeah, you
Yeah,
can see
and
that
that's
thing.
what I say. In the book, you had, I can't remember which kid it was, but one of them, they were in the sewer and they saw the Frankenstein monster. In fact, I think it's one of the bullies, if I'm not mistaken. But they don't really, you don't see that, like you said, it could be a right thing, but would it even still play right? Because you're talking about later on, 1964, you came out with the monsters, and that doesn't really, now we've taken, well, like you said, Abbott and Costello kept Frankenstein and Dracula serious, and they could still convey that seriousness. But the monsters kind of blew that out the water.
Oh, yeah.
Well, but also by that time, keep in mind these films were all over
Hey,
our
Glenn.
homes. They were all over TV. It was a real easy thing to translate and to show to kids, because it came back in the 30s and they were not gory, horrific, but they were well done horror movies.
right.
Creepy and
Creepy, yeah.
atmospheric.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but by the time, but see, in the book, the kids, of course, are in the 1960s. That's it's
Yeah.
so that's why. But now that you would see the zombies or whatever, that gore element, that gore element kind of started taking in what Night of the Living Dead was when it really started to. So
There
when
was some gore in the early Hammer films.
Oh yeah,
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 but not to the extent of later movies, especially in the 80s. Where you had Return of the Living Dead and Evil Dead and the real gore movies.
the big thing with Night of the Living Dead was that what they achieved on what little money they spent.
Yeah.
That was the big thing with that movie, is that it was an amazing horror classic, literally, that was done on a shoestring. Really started a whole genre of independent. I think a lot of your grindhouse horror films just stepped off right from that point.
I'd agree.
Well,
But in the meantime, you still had a lot of practical effects going on the Hammer films and the higher budget movies. Universal stopped doing monster movies because they weren't selling at the theater. After the first couple of big hits that they had, they saw the money drop. That's why they, tried to spice it up with Abbott and Costello.
That's everything that kind of becomes popular.
Yep.
Is out the
Runs their
gate.
wave.
It's
well,
there's
horror.
no losing money, and then it's you're losing money.
Right.
Well, horror and monsters have kind of always been a niche genre anyway. I mean, every once in a while you'll have something that blows it out and will catch on, like Nightmare on Elm Street. I guess I don't even know.
Yeah.
I guess Freddy Krueger's a monster, right? I mean,
He becomes a monster. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a dream monster. Yeah. The big thing, and Stephen King points this out in Danse Macabre, is the waves of that horror has always reflect societal mores at the time. That there's always a psychological reason why these monsters are big at that particular time in history.
Yeah.
So there's a reason why vampires are popular when vampires are popular. There's a reason why zombies were big when zombies are. Everybody got tired of cubicle working, and they all felt like zombies anyway. So
it wasn't too far fetched.
Get
So
real sociological and psychological about explaining away the different fads and the different waves in popularity.
Well, even in cartoons, you start to see the idea of monsters being people. Like, for instance, like for Scooby Doo, every time you had a monster, you had a ghost or a creature or whatever, they were actually a person. I think they changed that later on.
That was also at a point where they were starting to make cartoons intentionally for kids, because a lot of those cartoons, when they first sprung up, even the Saturday morning cartoons, weren't necessarily made for kids. You can't sit there and watch an episode of Beanie and Cecil and say, "Oh yeah, that's all kiddie stuff," because there's a lot of very adult humor in there, double entendres and stuff like that. But once Hanna-Barbera started kicking out, because you got to, even in prime time, something I didn't realize. I watched a video about it the other day. Top Cat was prime time at one point.
That's true.
It was a prime time show for a year. And then Hanna-Barbera turned their attention to Saturday morning, because for them, that's where the money was. They can kick it out in a hurry. So they stopped Johnny Quest. They stopped doing prime time shows, and they started concentrating on doing Saturday morning shows. And even then, for a few years, they were doing superheroes and adventure titles or adventure series and stuff like that. Weren't necessarily for super young kids until they came through. Congress came through and had hearings and had them tone it down quite a bit. Then they were bringing in psychologists to make sure they were giving out the right message, and violence toned down considerably out of the Saturday morning shows. Things got a lot duller.
Mm.
Don't you love it when the government ruins shit?
That's the way it usually works. Well, look at comics. Comics are the same way.
Yeah.
Comics back in the 50s were raging, but they weren't doing superhero materials. They were selling crazy amount of horror crime books that were very true to life, very gory, very not for kids, very much not for kids. And then they were beaten down into kids' literature with the Comic Codes Authority stamp put on it.
Mitch wouldn't know
The
anything
sales
about
went
that
to the floor.
all.
No.
Mitch wouldn't understand.
He would
that.
know a lot about that from the two horror ECs covers back behind him.
Yeah, that's a point.
Using my
All
key detective
incredible
skills.
classic stuff. Yeah, not meant for kids, but very incredibly well done. More, and that's why the Tales from the Crypt movies or series was as good as it was and as memorable as it was, because the majority of those scripts came right out of those comic books.
Oh yeah, yeah. I actually love Tales from the Crypt more than Vault of Horror. It's just these were the only ones I could find in the big collection of EC prints that were even horror related. Because I'm assuming someone bought up all the other horror stuff. So
So when did we start seeing the monsters kind of used more on a friendly level though? I mean, we're saying we're talking about the horror and the idea of them scaring us,
and again, I think you saw that turning point with television and people trying to find a way to use these monsters as viable brands, and they started toning them down more for kids. Then you started seeing kids cartoons with monsters in it and stuff like that.
Right.
So, Munsters comes out. Charles Addams with Addams Family used very horrific, very dark humor that made the Addams Family such a landmark show that it is, still run today. You still, and classic, evergreen, totally like Twilight Zone. You can't get away from you sit down and you watch an episode and it's just as funny today as it was back in the 60s. Munsters especially is like that. They took all those tropes that at that point had become tropes: Frankenstein, Wolfman, mad scientists, vampires, and turned it into a TV show.
Yeah.
Right.
And kept the tropes of the TV sitcom Family at the time too.
Yeah.
The hardworking dad, the loving mother, the kind of wacky in-law.
Yeah. So true. The
crazy
kid.
Yeah, they completely blended
the ugly
best
sister
of both worlds. Yeah, ugly.
I never saw Addams Family as a kid show. Monsters were for kids. Yeah, I guess I could see that.
And with the Munsters too, and again, something I didn't realize until much later, you go and you watch those episodes again and tell me that those are for kids, because there's a lot of times where, what was his name? Not Eddie, Fred
Gwynn
was making statements. They were saying a lot of stuff in that program about hatred and prejudice and the treatment of other people equally, and only from a very funny bent,
Well, yeah, that's what we were talking about a few weeks ago when we were talking about 60 sitcoms. You're looking at the time frame that was made in. Of course, they're going to make a statement, even if they don't mean to make a statement. They're going to make a statement subliminally just because it's dealing with the times that they're in.
Yeah,
But yeah,
it was incredible. But back then, it was incredibly well done. You had those statements, you had those progressive statements, those liberal statements in that story, and it was so good you didn't feel like you were being beat over the head with it.
Right. Well, it was, well, it wasn't preachy. I said, I've said before, I can agree with you 100%, but if you're preaching at me, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
So, but that's
very few people do. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm tired of hearing all the sermons, even from people I agree with.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Same here. But my favorite thing with the Addams Family was, as an adult, watching back on it, Gomez and Morticia were very open with their relationship. Let's say,
very
they,
PDA.
yeah,
Oh.
and like some of the double entendres, that they use. I'm surprised it got past the TV censor.
Well, I'm sure there was a lot of things that they tried to do that they ended up having to cut because the censors wouldn't allow them. But they decided the big thing with that, and it was a big thing in the Charles Adams' work as well, is that they were a family unit and a loving family unit, a cohesive family unit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the way they were portrayed on TV. And of course, there were a lot of, when Charles Adams did the single panels jokes that were in the New Yorker, there were the same kind of humor with Gomez hitting on Morticia. That was part of the humor.
Mm-hmm.
The Adams Family was far better than the Munsters. Adams was classy and funny. The Munsters was just silly.
Sometimes,
Yeah,
though,
not-
silly has its charm.
I'll be honest. I've never been a Munsters fan. I was an Adams Family fan because I think when I look at the Munsters, that's what I see. I see Universal. I see
Yeah.
Universal Munsters,
Right.
which is what it's based off of, and it's they're
It's a parody.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and you have Adams Family. Adams Family have their archetypes. Like you had Lurch, who was obviously a corpse, or pieces of. I've heard somebody say at one time there was pieces of the Adams Family ancestors pieced together, or whatever the case, from the graveyard. But there was something about that was unique that didn't. I didn't look at. I guess I could say I didn't look at Adams Family and think something else. I thought
It was
unique
probably
in
something
itself.
Gomez and Morticia put together because they needed a butler.
Yeah, that's
There you go.
there you go.
Yeah.
Let's go rob the graveyard.
I never thought of him as like a Frankenstein monster type. I always thought of him as just this like large lurking guy that they just happened to hire as a butler.
Well, I mean, he was.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
You rang. You know.
Now we would probably think of him more like a zombie than anything,
Yeah.
although he was very intelligent.
Yeah,
And he could be one of the not the zombie where we had the idea of dead come back to life zombie,
Right,
but maybe
yeah.
just the lobotomized type zombie.
yeah,
He
probably.
was
Yeah.
grunted and was direct, almost like an educated Karloff, Frankenstein's monster, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
And really, Morticia, feet or tentacles? Seriously,
Depends on your kink.
Let's say tentacles.
I say tentacles.
Let's just say tentacles, huh? What?
Ooh la
Carol-
la.
Carolyn Jones was one of the most beautiful women
Mm-hmm.
on TV at the time. Not that I noticed when I was on that's about when you start noticing. Yeah.
Yeah, Morticia and Emma Peel. There you go.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh wow, yeah. Yeah. It was crazy to me. I did not
Julie
realize.
Newmar.
Julie
Oh,
Newmar
Yes.
again,
Yes.
and Eartha Kitt. It's even more sensual.
Oh yeah.
Purred a lot more.
I like
Because it was
Eartha
Eartha
Kitt's
Kitt.
voice. Yeah.
Pardon?
Her
Yeah,
voice
it
was her
Eartha
voice
Kitt.
was a
Natural purr anyway.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I like both for different reasons.
Yeah,
Emma
absolutely.
Pill. No, sorry.
There we go.
But yeah, like
See,
but
see
the-
Glenn's in the chat, 2:30 in the morning or 1:30 in the morning where he's at. He was saying he's not sleeping.
see, if we were later, he wouldn't be there. So
With the
see,
kid, one sexy girl. He said. Yeah.
But yeah, but see with them, like you had Morticia and you had Gomez, and they weren't any kind of monster per se. They were just creepy and kooky.
Mhm.
And I think I kind of gravitate towards that. Then of course you have the different kind of monsters that are really big. Is you have your Godzilla, and of course we talked
Kaiju.
about the
I
kaiju.
was just going to say back at the Munsters, who didn't want a dragon under their stairs?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You know. But
Well,
yeah,
somebody
Godzilla.
asked that question the other day about who would win between the Addams Family and the Munsters. Remember, we said the Addams Family, but somebody brought up the point of the dragon. But to me, I feel like Addams Family probably has something else lurking around there that might be a little
Well,
worse than the
Uncle
dragon.
Fester can take on the dragon anytime. He's pretty durable.
Cousin It was probably pretty lethal when
Yeah.
he wanted to be,
I'm thinking the Thing was a ninja.
and
I'm
thing,
telling you,
yeah,
he was.
pure
He-
ninja.
Yeah.
He'd come out of
Slit their
just
throats in the middle of
crevices
the
and
night.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. You think you're all alone. Next thing you know.
Well, especially especially on the
Great
in the
stuff.
movie,
Yeah.
especially in the movie.
Oh,
So,
the movies are great.
I'm telling, I think They did a fantastic job. In my opinion,
Again,
they
it's
did a
it's so much
fantastic job,
easier,
but,
you know, with
I saw
the
Adam's
later
Family.
movies to be able to disguise that body than what they were able to do with Thing in the TV show.
Spike, or was it Spot? The dragon.
Spot, I
can't
thought.
remember.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Is it
Pretty
Spot?
sure it was Spot. Yeah, it was a dog
I
name.
think so.
Yeah.
See, there's something very typical about the Munsters. I guess that's why it didn't really resonate, because they were in makeup, there was still the how can I say, Andy Griffith tone.
They're the
to
typical
it.
sitcom
Yeah.
family. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like what Mitch was saying. Yeah. They had all the tropes down.
because
Yeah.
it would give Godzilla a furball.
Yeah.
But Godzilla. So how did Godzilla cross from Japan to be as big even here?
2 words. Raymond Burr.
Yep.
Yeah.
Raymond
Yeah.
Burr,
Yep.
Mhm.
the Ironside.
Because they went
Mason.
through and recut that movie and put Raymond Burr in it in order to
Yeah.
try to bring some Americanism into the Japanese monster. Yeah.
So was
Yeah,
at that point? So at that point in time, Perry Mason around at that? See, I never saw
just
the
in the
Godzilla.
It was
books. Just in the
delayed.
books.
Yeah,
the books?
just in the books. The TV series, I don't think it started up yet, but Raymond Burr had a movie career.
Yeah, he was
Before
in
that.
Rear Window.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was.
He
He
was
was
a
the
next door
killer.
neighbor. Yeah,
It was the monster in Rear Window.
yeah. The
Yeah,
monster.
yeah, he was a monster. That's for sure. He was great. He was a fantastic actor.
Yes, he was.
But no, then you had like the Ghidra and Mothra and all the other
Oh yeah.
characters came over right after, and then Johnny Sacco and his giant robot, and then like in the '60s, then it morphed into Ultraman.
All of the
syndicated
anime
TV.
shows.
Oh, Ultraman. Yes.
Kimba and then
Yeah.
later Speed
White
Racer
Lion,
all bled
yeah.
in right about that same time.
Yeah,
It's
Eighth
like the
Man.
American guys are the guys who went after the rights. Went, hey, there's stuff here we can translate. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
there we go.
I am curious, Glenn. Who played the hand?
Ah.
Who played Thing in
I know who played
Yeah,
Cousin It.
I know
I
who
just
played
ran across that
who
the other
played
day.
Thing. It's a trick question.
How ironic.
It was-
Raymond
it
Burr
was-
in
he
the
was-
movie.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
Yeah, hand. Well, he played himself.
Yeah. There you
Yeah.
go.
Same guy that played
like that.
Lurch.
Yeah,
Was it really?
Yeah, it was Ted Cassidy. Yeah.
was it?
Oh, he's
Oh, the thing was Fred Gwynn.
It was? Oh, I
Was
thought
it?
it was.
Are you sure?
Are you sure about that? Because they were filming Munsters and Addams Family at the same time.
I don't know if that's
2 different studios.
Yeah, 2
Yeah.
completely
Yeah.
different studios.
I always heard it was the guy that played Lurch.
I know the guy
That's
who
what I
played
read,
Cousin
too.
It was the same guy that played the little robot in Buck Rogers, Fred Sewa.
And in the movie, the guy that played Cousin
No,
It
Ted
was-
Cassidy. He said, no, Ted Cassidy.
Yeah.
My bad. Yeah, that was
Oh,
Lurch.
Oh, Ted Cassidy. Okay.
See,
I know in the movies,
Ted-
the guy that
see,
played
Glenn,
Cousin
this is
It
why you
was,
need an editor. This is why you need an editor, Glenn. Just saying.
That's Lurch, my man. It's because he had that Fred Gwynn vibe. Looked at
He was
that eyes.
tall.
Instead.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's the only thing. But Godzilla, the one kaiju movie that I saw back then, as far as that, was Godzilla versus King Kong,
Mhm.
and I never took to the kaiju aspect. I guess because I feel like by the time you saw Godzilla, you might as well just stick your head between your knees and kiss your ass goodbye, because that's what's gonna happen.
It's force
At
of
that point
nature.
in time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my favorite thing in those old kaiju movies was these 2 monsters are battling in the city and just demolishing every building. But there's always that one building everyone's in cheering them on that doesn't get destroyed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, they know it's a sixth sense. It's that monster instinct. That one's a good one. We're gonna leave that one right where it is.
Luck of the draw. Yeah.
Do you
Well,
think
at
that-
least nobody got hurt. Yeah.
That's right.
That we know of.
No, I have an opinion about it. Of course, then again, I'm not a kaiju fan or fanatic. I don't dislike them, but so do the modern day Godzillas hold a candle to the charm of those old ones?
Well, it's like comparing new and old Doctor Who.
Yeah.
They both have their own separate charms. There's nothing
I
like 2
promise
guys in
you, I
rubber
could
suits
compare
fighting
those
on a
two.
set. nothing
Yeah.
like it at all.
But you
But nowadays you've got computer graphics and everything looks real, and They
Well,
go out of their way to aim for realism, where back then they didn't care. They had a rubber guy in a rubber suit running around. Yeah, that's Godzilla. There you are.
You're demolishing a doll town.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a toy
yeah.
town. Sure.
But there was still some kind of character to those versus what we see here now. I mean, there was still some type of writing. There was still something about those. What? Okay, let me ask this question then. You say because of the effects, it doesn't have the same charm. But
No, it has a separate charm.
it has
a separate kind of charm. Yeah. It's like watching the Tom Baker Doctor Who's and going, "Oh, yeah, it's a guy in a rubber suit." Where now you watch the Tennants and the Matt Smiths, and everything looks realistic. They even got the Daleks to ride upstairs.
That's right.
Yeah.
I told you Sunday, CGI never went near Doctor.
Yeah.
Those were documentaries.
I guess when I think of Doctor Who, as far as that's concerned, with the Cybermen, I know there is some CGI, but when I think of like Doctor Who villains, I think Cybermen, and that's not really CGI, or
oh no,
the
not at all.
Daleks and things like that.
That was
Those are the
long
ones that
before-
stand out to me.
Yeah.
What's
That
the
was
potato
back when-
head looking ones?
They tore apart A New Hope, and we're looking at all of the background and behind the scenes shots to get ideas for what they could do as cheaply as possible for the BBC, because the BBC didn't give them any money. All of that those great old science fiction series from the BBC were all done on super shoestring budgets. That's why you had Super Marionation, because it was so much easier to do puppets and models than it was to try to get that stuff down in real life.
Okay, so I understand that these are alien races, or what are future, like the Cybermen or whatever they decide the Cybermen are going to be this time around. All right, Carl, thanks for coming, man. Have a good.
Carl, take care. We even start an hour early. Carl still leaves halfway in between.
Hey, at least
we love you,
got
though,
him that
Carl.
time,
Thank
though.
you so much for
Carl.
listening. And we're archived over on Ragin too, also. So if you can catch the conversation tomorrow if you want. Absolutely.
But you look at those, and there's definitely a monster aspect to most of the alien. I don't want to call villains or antagonists to Doctor Who.
Well, you got all of those old, great 50s science fiction movies, too, that all had practical effects to them. And guys in rubber suits. The Creature from the Black Lagoon is a real classic one. Incredibly well done one.
Oh, absolutely.
But yeah, everybody, when you've only got a few dollars, you make it go for as far as you can. And all of these guys that were doing these grindhouse monster films, science fiction movies, all figured out real quick. You watch enough of them, you get to spot different props that they used over and over again. Robbie the Robot's in like a good half dozen classic films,
Yeah.
That's the same robot. They didn't bother to change him at all. They just stuck him in there because he was constructed and sitting on the set.
Well, even
stuck him in a TV show.
Yeah,
there
put
you
him in
go.
TV shows all over.
Well, you talk about that. I've rediscovered Ultraman in the last couple of years. Turned out it's a huge franchise over in Japan.
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
More like Doctor Who is in England. But the very early episodes, the show was created by the special effects team that worked on Godzilla.
Yeah.
And they decided to move their expertise into television. And so they, much like the Americans moved their radio stories onto TV. And a lot of the early Ultraman, especially the first couple seasons, were recycled characters. In fact, there's like the Godzilla suit has been repurposed about 3 or 4 times in the first season of Ultraman alone. So,
right. Yeah, Ultraman, I remember they've tried a couple of times to get a foothold here with Ultraman.
Yeah, they've. I remember there was like an animated show.
There's been more than one. Yeah,
more than one.
Yeah.
And there's an Australian version of it, but they just kept keeping on in Japan. I rediscovered them about 3 or 4 years ago, and they are like up to the 40th iteration of not Doctor Who, but of Ultraman.
Yeah,
because they designed it to only last 1 year. And then you bring in a new Ultraman. Like you have Ultraman, the next year you have Ultraman Jack, then you have Ultraman Gaia, etc., etc. So,
oh yeah, well that's kind of like the Dragon Ball stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Let me see
There's
if
a
I can
whole
play
new
this.
line of toys. It's not just the beta capsule. They've got risers. They've got this, that, and the other. It's, person could go broke just trying to keep up on the toys. There you go. That looks like the new movie.
Yeah,
They've got a new film movie, Shin Ultraman.
Oh,
this
they
is
have
what,
a Shin Ultraman, so not just Shin Godzilla, they have Shin Ultraman.
They have a Shin
Awesome.
Ultraman, and just like they had Shin Hayata in the first season of Ultraman.
Yeah.
So.
Next year, John Wick. It'll be great.
There we go. Yeah. There we go.
And speaking of Godzilla, Shin Godzilla is a great movie. Pretty cool. It's,
So what makes it Shin?
I don't know. I'm not Japanese.
Okay.
Yeah, and the only thing Shin I can think
don't know.
of is
well, that was a good.
we probably need to look it up. We need to look it
Yeah,
up.
let me look.
Yeah, I see that Christy Shin Ultraman. See, that's
Christy Shin Ultraman.
this is the learning place, people. This is why you tune in. You learn stuff. Tell your friends. They'll buy you drinks. But no, I the only thing I know is that the original host for Ultraman in the first series, his name was Shin Hayata, and I don't know, if Shin means something. Because like Mitch, I'm not Japanese, nor have I cared enough up to this
Neither.
moment to
Right.
actually examine the issue.
I mean, all the anime and samurai movies I've seen, I still don't know what Shin is.
I thought the shin was like right below your knee. That's
Yeah,
the only
see,
thing I
that's
can
what I'm
picture.
There you
trying
go.
to see. I'm trying to find it, but I'm like, what is shin
The
in
shin bone's
Japanese? It's like,
collected
wait,
in the
no,
knee
that's not
bone.
right.
Yeah. As
So
we
let me
all
see if
go
I
to
can find it.
Google right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
A major Japanese Buddhist sect that emphasizes salvation by faith. That can't be right.
Say what? now?
Okay, Osaka's modern train station is named Shin because it means new, which is a Japanese.
Oh, there
new.
you go. That explains a lot then.
Wow.
That's new Godzilla, new Ultraman. Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes
It
sense.
It also, according to Wikipedia, the source of all human knowledge, Shin can be written using different kanji characters and can mean either true, extend, new, or heart. And
Producer, yeah, that producer right there stated that the title Shin Gajira
yeah,
was chosen for the film due to the variety of meanings it conveys, such as either new, true, or God. Yeah, of course it's you. Not see now I want to say kanji, but that's not. Yeah, but depending on how you write it, right, is
Yeah,
what is the
yeah.
meanings.
hmm
And of course, this is Jarrett. Couldn't be on tonight, but you guys are killing it.
it's all about
Zombie
monsters.
McNasty in the house.
That was one. That has always haunted me as far as monsters were zombies. My mother's always like, "Why? You can run from them." It's like,
Not all of them, though.
No, not all of
About
them.
10 years ago, I don't remember the film, but like the zombies were like sprinting after their victims, and I'm like,
World War Z.
I'm out of here. I'm done, man.
World War Z, wasn't it?
That's it. You're right, Randy. Thank you. It was World War Z. But I saw
What-
that, and I'm like, at least even my bloated backside could probably get away from an average zombie.
Yeah.
Even
Just
with my
push 'em
bad
over.
knees. But now I'm like,
Well, you-
I'll just wait for him to get me.
it depends on what you watch because I haven't watched World War Z, but I did. Like Dawn of the Dead remake, the Zack Snyder version.
Oh,
They
yeah.
were fast. The freaking little girl in the hallway was freaky as hell. The what is it? 28 Days Later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, see,
Well, they had all night to figure that out. Then.
But the
They just
thing,
didn't have to sleep.
but zombies caught me honestly because I remember, my mother was a big fan of Night of the Living Dead
Mhm.
when I was younger. So I got to see the black and white. I didn't stay in the room very often when I was a kid, but it's the kind of thing. But so what for you? What monster, Brian, gets you? Which monster would you be scared of?
I probably any number of them because I am a full-fledged coward and I don't mind telling you that explains my longevity. I will tell you the one monster though that scared the bejesus out of me. I started buying Famous Monsters of Filmland when I was like 6 years old. And I was digging all these monsters and like, Mom, I want to see this. I want to see this. And so our local one of our TV stations had this thing called Way Out Theater on Thursday nights,
Sure.
right after the 10 o'clock news. And they'd play like a little 15, 20-second clip of the movie to follow. Well, on Thursday nights, they had Way Out Theater. And Mom was like, Brian, we'll let you stay up, you got to take a little nap before you watch, but we'll wake you up, you can sit with us, and we'll talk about the film. And it was The Invisible Man. And it was the scene where the constable's running down like this S-shaped pathway, and I'm like, that's it. What's he running from? And the next thing you see is like this empty pair of pants. All I remember doing is screaming like a little girl, and run. I don't remember my feet touching the ground. I just bolted back in my room, slammed the door, threw myself under the covers, and my mother had to coax me out again with apple juice to get me to watch the rest of the film. But once I got there and she was there, pointing out, okay, this looks scary, but it's not. There's trickery involved in this, and
doesn't matter. I saw a pair of pants running by itself.
There you go.
That, man. I guarantee if I see an empty pair of pants walking in through that door right there, I am going exit stage left, if you know what I mean. Okay, I'm channeling my inner Snagglepuss, but no, that just scared me crapless. But now I watch that scene and I'm like, just a little bit of.
I'm telling you, if I saw a pair of pants coming at me, I would be.
Yeah.
I think it's because I don't wear them so often. That's probably why I'm so afraid of them. That could be it.
Could be why you don't wear them so often.
Exactly. See, Randy's got it now. See, I've just saved myself hundreds and thousands of dollars in therapy. Thanks to Randy.
Every time you
It ties back to that childhood trauma.
Harold, dispatches we're getting saving you money on therapy, but there has been several sightings of pants lately. I don't know what the deal is.
That looks like that cryptid monster you played yesterday. On last week, only it was all white.
Yeah.
Looks like parachute pants running across the.
Right. I was looking for one. I was looking for one that they've got. It's a little boy, and he's looking at a rabbit, and they're on the stairs, and they're filming the kid with the rabbit, and there's a pair of pants that just runs by. Like, what do you expect people to believe this? Oh, but since I pestered,
go ahead.
My mom to let me watch The Outer Limits. I was 8. She let me, but then the Zanty Misfits appeared. I didn't like it. No, with freaking faces. She made me watch it because I had smothered her so much. The wrong trousers.
Well, also over in England, when the Daleks first showed up in Doctor Who, all the kids freaked.
Oh, they were.
And you look at it now. I mean, it was a real serious, traumatic experience for some kids.
It's that voice.
And you look at it now. Yeah, that's what it was exactly, though. But you look at them now and you go, oh, it's just salt shakers with a plunger and a whisk attached to it.
Hey, plungers can be very creepy sometimes.
Yeah, that's very true.
It's true.
Especially
but at that point in that time, it was a very frightful monster. Yeah.
Don't judge anybody unless you've been threatened by a plunger.
Glenn mentioned
my private life out of the sea.
Glenn mentioned the Zanty Misfits. One of the big monsters that hit me as a kid was that tribal doll that came to life in Trilogy of Terror.
Oh God, that's creepy.
Hair in black. Everybody was talking about it in school, and everybody had seen it. It was crazy. They must have had really high ratings on that show because.
Well, they did. They made a second one in the 90s.
Yeah.
With what was her name? Crap, can't remember.
Karen Black was
Said
in the
Anthony first was in the second one.
Yeah. Did it have the little doll in it?
Yeah.
Okay. It have to.
Well, yeah.
That's what everybody was talking about.
There you go. All right. Well, let's go ahead and take a couple of bumps and we'll come back and find out what Mitch is afraid of. Okay. Uh-oh. Give you some time to think about it. I'm going to be right back.
Your favorite podcast is Critical Blast.
right. And then we're just reminding you that if you do have a Kickstarter and you are or any kind of crowdfunding, comic or anything to get out, and you're using Gemini mailers, just to remind you to use Ragin2 coupon code to save yourself 5%. And if you have any questions, make sure to email us at raginabc@gmail.com. There's no such thing as a dumb question, but I can almost guarantee 90% of our answers will be. So, Mitch, what is the
Yes.
monster that sticks with you?
I don't know. The biggest issue with monsters really is getting away from them. So
Yes.
that's
Depends
like
on the
the
monster.
number one. Yeah. So I guess you know the biggest or the most frightening monsters like that one you can't get away from. So probably anything from H.P. Lovecraft, because they're all cosmic gods, and it's really hard to run away from something that either is a cosmic god or can infect your dreams or is always there when you are. That's that whole concept I find really frightening.
Yeah, that's one of those head between the knees situation. You might
Yeah.
just forget it. I remember reading a book, and I might have brought this up before. A woman named Sherry Priest. She wrote a book called Maple Leaf. I can't remember what it was, but basically it was written correspondence, kind of like how Dracula is, and it's Lizzie Borden. And the idea was I don't think it was Cthulhu. I can't remember. It was some squid like or whatever was taking over these people, and pretty much why she killed her stepfather, and her mother. And
So it's kind of like Evil Dead, I guess, where everyone in the house is being possessed or taken over, and she has to be the one to kill them.
yeah, Maplecroft, that was the name of it. It was actually a series. It was kind of interesting because it actually was taking place after she was exonerated. Because Lizzie Borden was never prosecuted for the death, and it had to do with her sister changing and things like that. So even though it was decent. I mean, but just the idea of these things being able to, because they lived in Maine. I think it was Maine, right? Am I right?
Rhode Island.
Rhode Island. Okay, so it's near the ocean somewhere close there.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so
I've actually seen Lizzie Borden's house. So.
oh, really?
Yeah,
Did it
I
have
lived out there. I lived in Providence, Rhode Island for a few months back in '77,
cool.
and at the time, pardon me, at the time, the owner of the house wanted no one to tour it or anything. Now, in the last 20 years or so, the current owners have come on in, charge admission, make a big deal out of it. But at the time, they weren't. Everyone in town knew what the house was about. And,
Right.
It was a steady stream of people driving by it. But yeah, that was in, I want to say, Fall River, Massachusetts, if I remember correctly. And it makes that novel sounds great, and it makes sense because wasn't H.P. Lovecraft from Providence, Rhode Island?
Yeah.
I think
So-
yeah.
That kind of fits up there.
Yeah, it's Sherry Priest, Cheri,
Okay.
Priest, and
Look for that.
yeah, I ran across her. She did a steampunk series, like an American steampunk series, called Clockwork Century, and I was reading a whole bunch of steampunk at one time. But yeah, I could totally get that. I mean, especially tentacles. Tentacles freak me out. Right now, I'm working on something with the drowned ones, and I never until this because, like I said, I was never a Lovecraft person necessarily. I had the Book of the Dead, not Book of the Dead. Is it the Necronomicon?
Necronomicon.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, which some people thought that was real. I did not
They still
know
do.
one way or another. Yeah, they
Yeah.
still do. but yeah, then I got to read it's Innsmouth, but I can't. Was it The Trouble in Innsmouth? What is the
Shadow
name?
of Rinsmouth.
Shadow over
That's
Innsmouth?
it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and that was it's horrifying, but it's not because it's almost like somebody coming home.
Yeah.
In that sense.
I've
Yeah,
listened
we're
to a lot
doing
of
anything.
H.P. Lovecraft Audible books. If you hunt around on YouTube, just about everything is, if not everything that Lovecraft
Oh, yeah.
has done, is available on Audible. Very unsettling, even now.
Oh yeah. Well, and I started listening to it in audio, but what happens to me when I start listening to this stuff? It's like, wait, you know what? I want to read it. But what was kind of cool about the audio version of it is you had the captain's bell and everything.
Yeah,
the sound effects.
So
Yeah.
that was pretty cool.
Nice.
So Glenn says, imagine a pair of trousers coming at you with a whisk and a plunger.
There you are.
George says, good evening, gentlemen. Good evening, George.
Good evening, George.
But Glenn, of course, being brave, said, I didn't freak at the Daleks. I thought they were great. That's because you're morbid, Glenn. That's why. Randy, what monster sticks with you?
Well, you know, I just tried to vote out a couple of monsters earlier today. But in my youth, the big one that hit me on Saturday afternoon was probably the Blob with Steve McQueen.
Oh yeah.
Especially when it comes oozing into the theater.
Yeah, I tried to include that in the montage, and I couldn't find a good enough clip of it. I found some from the 1980s one with
Matt Dillon.
Not Matt Dillon, his brother.
Bob Dylan? What?
No.
Marshall Dillon?
Marshall Dillon?
Was it? I don't think it was Matt Dillon. It was
Not Marshall Dillon.
I'll look it up here in a minute. But yeah,
Johnny Smith was
Del
the
Close
girl
was
in
in
it.
that one from Second City. I remember that.
Yeah, he was the crazy preacher.
Yes.
I might be wrong. I could have sworn
They're about
Kevin
due for
Dillon.
a remake.
Kevin
Dillon.
Dillon.
That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
I knew it. I knew I wasn't crazy. I knew it.
They're about due for a remake on that anyway.
Rob Zombie was going to do one at one
No,
point.
well, no, not anymore.
I know.
Please don't.
Yeah, it's good
Rob
thing he did.
Zombie's busy on the Munster movie.
Oh,
And that was pretty good, actually.
anyway, let's see what Glenn's got to say. The
Welcome
scariest,
to Brian's last appearance on this show.
Oh no.
the scariest film I ever saw was the original The Haunting with Julie Harris, the bit where the ghosts are banging on the door.
Oh, that's
Mhm.
what are you trying to do?
And that's one thing is what constitutes as a monster. We could say aberrations or inhuman or deformed or whatever the case is,
Right.
but sometimes ghosts and aliens are kind of lumped in there, right? So,
Yeah.
is that
I
fair
think
to
it's
say?
any non-human creature of any significance to the story.
I'd agree.
A dog or a cat wouldn't really be a monster, but the dog in The Thing is a monster because it's,
Well, again, Carpenter's The Thing is evergreen.
oh,
You can still watch that show to this day, and it still is unsettling as the first time you see it.
Oh,
Some
yeah.
scenes, especially, are incredibly well done. True master of suspense. And cinema, right there.
Yeah, I think Jordan Peele. Somebody said something about Jordan Peele being the greatest. Sorry, hold on. The greatest horror movie director of all time, and he said, "How dare you blaspheme John Carpenter that way?" Or something.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
who said?
Everybody's got
it's
their own
somebody.
niches,
Somebody.
that everybody handles. Hitchcock, incredible, but he never handled any monsters outside of birds, and people that were crazy.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, you could say, Anthony Perkins.
You could say he
Norman
was a
Bates
monster, yeah.
was kind of a
Yeah.
monster. The birds, they were deformed in the head too.
Yeah.
That was
The
pretty
birds
monstrous.
in Birdemic were deformed.
Yeah.
But they were monsters.
That wasn't Hitchcock, though.
Birdemic,
tried to
is that B movie one? Oh my gosh, man.
Birdemic?
No, it's a Z movie. There's
It's a Z movie. It is so bad. Oh my gosh. It's like they made it with those with like one of those apps or
Yeah.
whatever you
Make
got.
Sharknado look like high art. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Going straight
Hitchcock
to
was the
Betamax.
master of suspense, not horror, not gore, suspense.
Yeah, that's true.
True. That's true.
Well, he didn't have to show. I mean, he didn't have to show anything. It was unsettling. That's all he needed. That's all he needed.
But I can't think of a Hitchcock film that he's done, even the old stuff that they used to give out on VHS, that isn't worth your time to sit and watch.
Yeah.
It's
they're
just
all good.
highly entertaining, great films.
Oh no, yeah. I plan on a profile piece in the future because there's too much there to not be inspired by what Hitchcock did.
Yeah, and he's
Regardless.
somebody that I recommend to writers. If you want to
Oh,
study pacing and the, building up a suspense, then releasing it, then building it up, and then releasing it, that's Hitchcock is the blueprint for it.
I think he's kind of an all around. I mean,
Yeah.
because even with comic art, just studying the way that he did his camera angles and the way that he, like running the camera through one scene or whatever the case is, was just enough to.
And from what I understand, he used to map all of his movies out in storyboard in almost like graphic novel form anyway.
That's what
So
Oh,
something
really?
I'd be real interested in seeing is a couple of his films off of his director's notes, because he was one of those directors that always went in completely prepared.
Yeah. You can
So
tell.
every scene was down on paper before he put it on the camera.
I'd love to see his notes on Rope.
Oh my gosh!
Oh,
that's a
absolutely.
great one.
Yeah,
Rope, I
that would be
think
amazing.
honestly,
Such a great one.
as much as I think I realized how brilliant he was in Rope, and just the swinging door scene where Jimmy Stewart's sitting there talking to the one student, the other student's in there, and the door swings one way, and you see him open the drawer, and then the other way he's got the. It's just, I don't know. That's one of my favorite scenes out of anything.
Oh yeah.
And to me, Rope must have been like a side project to him because it was a stage play.
Yeah,
Because it was
Right.
already mapped out, already done. All he did was film it and figure out how to move that camera in a continuous flow. And he did it, I'm sure, to keep to do something challenging for him to make it worth his time filming.
Exactly. Yeah.
look here. I found something. Put it up here. This is a storyboard from. Let me get back here. Family Plot.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
1976.
Mhm.
Which I don't remember. This isn't a movie. Is this a Hitchcock Presents?
No, it's a Hitchcock movie.
It's
Yeah.
a movie.
Wasn't that,
Okay, I don't
wasn't
remember.
that his last one?
One of his last ones, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can.
You don't see it out there very often.
No, you don't. That and Topaz. A lot of his later things you don't see very often.
Topaz, I think I saw just up on Turner, the TCM section of HBO Max.
Mhm.
So I think I almost watched that a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Look at this. Stone Mason Shard. Start close on screen. Filling shot of the word died.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Thanks a lot for that rabbit hole, Randy. Appreciate
I know
that.
where we're all going after the show.
There's an incredible book or two in
David
that,
Burke could
and
have
in
been-
his notes. Yeah.
Yeah. All done in 4 shots. Four takes, I should say. Talking about Rope, right? Yeah.
Yeah. The only time the screen goes black is when they were changing the film and the camera.
Right.
So he'd sneak behind somebody's back, change
Oh, yeah.
the film,
Yep.
pull back out, and just keep going. Yeah.
I think there was like some dishes at one time where you came in, you saw the dishes, and then they're being taken away because it kind of switches to a later scene. Say no cuts, just fade to black when the film runs out. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, he
Bill
was-
weren't the first.
yeah. He was trying to keep that play element
Yes.
feel to that.
And it is there. Yeah. It's
Oh, yeah.
very much, you got that feel of a stage play in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But and of course now we're talking about Alfred Hitchcock, which
We're
he
off of
definitely-
monsters. Yeah.
Well,
there were a couple
yes,
of monsters
yes
in
and
that
no.
movie.
I mean, there were still he still messed with your head.
And-
so
And Jimmy Stewart.
And
Yeah.
Jimmy
Yeah.
Stewart.
Dorsey.
Another topic for another time.
Yep.
There you go.
Anyway, I guess we go ahead and wrap it up.
Nowadays, monsters are kaiju that giant robots fight in Pacific Rim.
I never saw
Or-
Pacific
or
Rim. Oh no, I saw
Godzilla
half
and-
of Pacific Rim.
Godzilla and
King Kong.
versus King Kong. Got the
With
newer
Mecha
Godzillas.
Godzilla.
Yeah,
With the
it's just not the same when you don't have a spinning walnut with flaming legs happening,
Yeah.
Yeah.
moving. And yeah, it's just or two little girl moths talking or singing to bring the monster in. It's just not the same.
Or,
Have you ever seen
What?
any of the Gamera movies?
Yeah.
Gamera.
When I
It
was a
friend to all
kid,
children.
when I was a
That's
kid, every
true.
Saturday afternoon had a movie like that, either a Godzilla film or an old Universal movie or an old monster or horror movie, just something to keep the kids occupied.
Yeah.
You know, I was always there.
Oh yeah.
That was it for me. And then you had all those great movies that the horror hosts would bring in, you know, that Sir Graves Ghastly and the Ghoul, that kind of
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
The stuff Sven Gulli still does to this day. You'll see famous monster movies on there all the time.
Great one out of the Indianapolis area, Sammy Terry.
Mm.
He was great. The worst one I ever saw, though, was out of Springfield, Illinois. Chuck Acree. There was nothing horrifying about him. You know, he had like a little spider on a string like everyone else did, or somebody might walk through in a Halloween costume, you know, like a Ben Cooper kind of Halloween costume. But this is a guy, he sold siding.
Okay.
He would come on and go,
scary.
well, that's pretty scary, isn't it, kids? Well, you know what? You know what else is scary? The damage that could be done to your house if you don't have good siding. I'm Chuck Acree. I'll come over and I'll give you a free estimate. You know, it's I'm like,
Tell your mom, dad. Yeah.
just so surreal. You know, you see all these guys working their hearts out trying to convince you they're frightening.
Poor guy called up the network one day saying he wanted a spot, and they said, "Okay, you got to sponsor a show. All right."
Yeah, you want to host some movies? We got some movies you can host.
You got to
Yeah.
introduce
All
us
right.
too. Hey, what?
Come on down. Yeah.
That's right.
Well, not having siding is pretty scary.
Hey, kids, tell your mom and dad that when you wake up in the middle of the night by a nightmare that you got scared by me, and have them come down and talk to me, and I'll sell them some siding. Yeah.
Hey, look! I bet you he couldn't show Godzilla films though, because that siding wouldn't have been a damn thing.
You see that building that was destroyed? He'd have had a rougher time if he'd had my siding.
That's right. You know, my siding, it can last against weather, tornadoes, hurricanes, and radioactive breath. So come on down for a full estimate, and I'll come down to your house on Monday morning.
And I was in a documentary with talking about horror hosts, and the pervading theme. Everybody had the same. Whenever they interviewed the hosts, almost all of them had the same story. I was brought in by the studio. They told me to do something fun. I had a limited budget that was nothing.
Yep.
And we made stuff up. I didn't expect to be there for a week. And here it is 11 years later.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the theme of the entire documentary. It's about
sounds-
how all of these guys, these regional guys went in or girls or whatever, these horror hosts went in and introduced all of these great old monster and horror movies, you know, and talked about them in between or the commercial breaks or whatever, and all had almost the same shtick. It's the same thing Sven Gulli does today.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
on
that
Me
was-
TV.
Well, that was
Except,
like, you know,
except without quite as many rubber chickens.
yeah. Well, it's like I mentioned Way Out Theater. It was on our local CBS affiliate in Champaign, Illinois, WCIA, and found out the host's name was Trebor. And it's just basically this guy dressed all in black with a turtleneck in a black, set, and it's all black and white anyway, because this is pretty much before everything was color on TV. And he lasted like a good couple of years. Found out later, I did some research on him. There are some people who were looking into the history of WCIA, and turned out this guy, his name, of course, was Robert. I know you're surprised. I wait till you're all sitting down. And then he worked in the ad department of the station.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, back in the day when you had the same guy doing like the weekend weather and then the morning farm report and then a kids show every day. So kind of like Dave Letterman when he started.
Buffalo fill in the blank, whatever.
Yeah.
Up here
Was it the clown?
around where we were, it was Hassan stuff. It was a guy who dressed up like a sea captain and talked to a couple of puppets while he introduced cartoons.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
At least he had a puppet, right?
Yeah, that's true. But how was
Well, that's-
exciting?
But you're talking about the horror, and of course, one of the big horror icons of introducing horror movies and such is, of course, Elvira.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm sure her whole horror element is what kept her around, right? I mean, she's spooky, right?
And there was another, she really was inspired by another horror host out of LA. That was,
Vampira.
what?
Vampira, yeah.
Vampira.
Yes.
She was also
Thanks,
in
Mitch.
Plan 9 from Outer Space.
Yes, I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, was she Vampira? Was she kind of the precursor to the Vampirella
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
creation?
Yeah, in fact, I think she had a lawsuit against Cassandra Peterson
Wouldn't
for a while,
surprise me.
saying that Elvira was basically a ripoff of Vampira.
Yeah.
And I don't think she won, but
Well, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Elvira was more of like the stereotypical '80s young woman, and Vampira was more of like the spooky, creepy
Right.
horror trope.
Yeah.
Well, Elvira was always kind of silly.
Yeah.
She was
On
always
purpose, yeah.
yeah.
She was
yeah,
laughing
absolutely.
with you. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
She made no qualms of why you were tuning in. She knew
Exactly.
why.
That was
knew
part
what-
of the shtick.
what brought the-
She-Hulk's going to do the same thing on the She-Hulk show. She'd turn to the camera and say, isn't that a pisser or whatever? Yeah. You really believe what's going on, folks? Yeah. We're doing
Yeah, I
a
did
commercial,
see-
then we'll be right
I
back.
did say
Yeah.
that they're going to break the fourth wall with her. That's good to see.
Well, they're going back to the
Nice.
burn stuff. That's a topic for another time.
Yeah, true. That sounds like a Wednesday night topic.
Yeah, could be.
Anyway,
Yeah,
Brian.
because I'll talk about Tatiana Maslany any day of the week.
Oh yeah,
She's
they're coming
really a
out.
good actress.
Speaking of which, and off the subject, that they're coming out with a spinoff for Orphan Black called Orphan Black Echoes.
Yeah, it won't be the same though.
It's going to have Kristen Ritter in it, which should be interesting actually. Which was Jessica Jones.
It'll be worth watching, but
I've seen her act in different ways too. So
yeah, the
it'd be
thing that
interesting
made
to see
Orphan Black though was Miss
Oh, yeah, her
Lonnie's
acting.
acting
Oh, yeah.
abilities. So she should have had a lot more recognition than what she did off of that series.
Oh, absolutely. Emmys all around.
Yeah,
But
she was just
She
incredible.
should have
on that
won
show.
one for each personality.
Pretty much. After that, at the end of the first season, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The
Absolutely.
writing on that kind of goes awry, but the opening, the first couple seasons are just unbelievable. Really good.
So with what we looked at Monsters Night, what can we use from what we know about monsters in our own creation process? Is it just to use it for just monsters, or can we use certain aspects of that?
Well, as the guy here who has a monster comic book,
Well,
Which
uh,
looks like
hang on, let me-
He's a bulger.
hashtag always promote.
Yeah.
There you go. Show it in front again.
Lovely.
All right. Extended edition.
yeah, I added stuff from the original, or I added stuff to the original miniseries when I released that version.
Cool.
And as you can tell, I had this bizarre, strange obsession with papyrus font. I don't know why. Don't ask me. I just kept using.
Everybody
it. I don't
runs
know.
through stages when it comes to
Yeah.
fun.
But for my creative process, I've always loved monsters, and I just thought of the best monster I can come up with the type of story I was trying to tell.
Right. Well, even still, there's aspects of that you can transfer to a human psyche
Oh
for
yeah,
that
Oh, yeah.
matter. We didn't
Yeah,
even get
yeah,
into those
some of
type
the-
of monsters.
yeah. Well, going back to last episode, was it last episode we did? No, 2 episodes before that we did
Villains.
Yeah, some of the best villains are some of the most monstrous.
Right. Yeah.
Of the ones
Nope.
that just have no empathy, no remorse. Their motivations aren't even what a typical human motivation would be.
Right. Yeah. It's just because obviously we've casted on monsters certain aspects of our own selves that we don't particularly care for, so it's not too hard to believe. So Brian, tell us where we can find you, sir.
Well, you can find me at One Stop Shopping, www.risingtide.pub. You can get a connection to my monthly newsletter, which just went out yesterday. Our broadcasting, we still do our Thursday night show, Comic Book Spectrum, at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central Time, where we review some of the latest comics and talk about events going on in the funny book industry. But otherwise, you can find me on Amazon and all social media. So please check out my work. I would appreciate it. And we can bring my wife home. We'll sell enough of them. So
Yeah, how is your wife? Everything?
yeah, she's fine. She's pretty much over For those of you who may not know, since I don't do a daily show anymore, I came down with the My Sharona Miley Cyrus because we say that because we want to stay monetized.
Right.
And I've still got a few after effects, but I'm surprised because this is like one of the latest nights I've stayed up for a while. So, and you guys made it possible.
Oh,
So
that's going to be a good thing, or we're just monsters for doing it.
There we are.
6 of one, half dozen of the other.
You're welcome to do that tomorrow night too, if you want.
We'll see what's happening. We'll see what's happening.
Glenn says, "Great show, fellas. Thanks for easing my insomnia." Wow.
There we are.
Wow, that's
Thank you, Glenn.
Dispatches killing insomnia dead.
Yeah.
That's it. Mitch, tell us where we can find you.
You can find me right here at Linktree/Celtic Cross Studios.
All right. And Randy?
You can write to me at thezimcast@gmail.com. I'll be running the Zimcast tomorrow night, where we'll be starting at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, an hour earlier than we had been before, but we'll be there at 8 p.m. from now on Wednesdays. Then you can catch me again on Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. for the Sunday Funnies, where we talk a more lighthearted and fun discussion, more a passionate discussion, trying to put the fun back in funny books, talking about this art form that we love so much. Then if you want to read something I actually wrote, Glenn Fleming has professionally laid out Comics Unlimited number 10, where I have an article in there in the very back of the book talking about the dawn of Arrow Comics, which is something near and dear to my heart. That it's an article that I plan on doing another installment of, hopefully in number 11, where we will cover the rest of the history of Arrow. But had a lot of fun putting that out. Glenn says it's out this week, so it'll be out this week. If you want to see me in person, I will be this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, over at the really cool Comic-Con in Flint at the Dort Federal Arena, whatever they call it now. Used to be the Pirani's Center, used to be the IMA Sports Arena. It's right off of I-69 and Court Street, real easy to get to. It's a really big show. Last year's was really big from what I understand. Can't wait to be there this year. It'll be the first show I've done in like 3 years. And while I'm there, I will be selling copies of Arrow Comics, like Hybrids and Paragon and Calico. Paragon and Calico. Calico. Right
Yeah,
there.
you got to show that one. Yeah. There you go.
Drawn by our host, C Michael. So
Yeah.
I'll have copies of those books there in limited supply. So
I do
please
comics.
stop by and get those as early as possible, because they will only be there while supplies last. And believe me, there's not a lot. So, but other than that, you can find what we're doing as Arrow Comics over at our Linktree, Arrow Comics 4.0. We have a Facebook page. I have a personal Facebook page as well. If you want to reach me over there, don't look for me over at Twitter, because I'm never over there. Same thing with Instagram, and we don't have a TikTok, thank God. So, because we don't need to let the Chinese know what we're doing. It's all good.
Well, anyway, I'm C Michael Lanning. You can find me on my Linktree, and on like Indie Rush, guys. This is about the campaigns during the week. If you see this, take a look, and I don't care if you like it, but at least share. Let other people know what's out there. Let's get some support to some good campaigns or what's coming out. Yeah.
And Glenn wants me to point out that Comics Unlimited is available over on Amazon. It's Comics Unlimited number 10.
There after.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. So, anyway, as we go out, I'd like to remind you that if you're in the box and you can't create, at least learn to decorate. So, good night.
Bitch gotta bring that shit over here. Okay, well maybe she won't see me. Somebody help me! Brenda! Oh, shit! She stole me! Thank you Okay, now let that shit just mutilate her white ass and leave.